Hello all and welcome to History with R&R Live. It is too early in the morning or afternoon, I don't remember which. How are you doing, Jeff?
It's all timey-wimey. I love that intro, and I'm doing great.
Yes, so do I. Uh, the music gets me kind of awake. And welcoming to the chat quick, Mrs. Canuck, welcome, my love. And once again, happy birthday. It was fun last Saturday night. We had a big karaoke party for her, so that was fun. And then she did one on
Happy
her
birthday,
channel
Mrs. Canuck.
on Friday, so that was fun. Mark the Infly Tired, welcome. Brandon the Anime Guy, welcome. Dr. Alex, welcome, sir. And let's see, who else do we have in here? John DeMarco, Ryan Roger Athay, welcome, sir. We got to get him on and few aspects yet. He might be making an appearance on this channel. Ha ha ha. Gorilla's Random Thoughts, welcome. And did I miss anybody? I hope not. I don't think so. All right, without further ado, let's bring in the guest for today, Purple Valkyrie. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. Great to see you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem.
We should have had you on earlier.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Really loving the channel at the moment and loving the content that you guys are doing. So very excited to get to join you today.
Not a problem. It's always fun to have royalty on, Queen Elizabeth. And if you don't get that damn joke, go back and watch my radio shows, damn it.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Complete with dodgy Russian accents. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, speaking of dodgy accents, how are we doing for Witchcraft today?
Yes.
And unfortunately, folks, I don't think we'll be talking about cauldrons or frogs. So if you're
yes. No Harry Potter today. Sorry, guys.
Life with Matthew is going to be so disappointed.
Yeah, he's probably looking for a couple of recipes. But anyway, we'll move on. So where would you like to take us to start off, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, I suppose what I should kind of start off is kind of give you an idea of why I wanted to talk about it. So when I was asked, what would you like to cover, I had to sit back and think, what do I want to cover? Do I want to talk about something like Vikings? Do I want to talk about more modern history? And then I thought something that I've always had an interest in and something that I've always kind of in the back of my mind read up on is witchcraft, and specifically witchcraft and how it was dealt with within the UK.
Sounds good. So where shall we start? Are we going to start at the trials right away, or the wonderful Catholic Church and their views? Nothing like a steak in the morning, and usually it doesn't involve beef.
I'm rather fond of the beef type.
Yeah.
Me too. But it's
wooden type, not so much.
Medium to rare.
Yeah.
Anything more? No.
Yeah. The wood kind, I'll pass. But
that's another thing that I was going to talk about as well, the difference between how it was dealt with in Britain, in England, and how it was dealt with in Scotland, because that was much more bloody, much more violent.
Well, it's the Scots. What do you expect?
Exactly. They've always got to one-up the English, yeah.
Well, or the English have to one-up the Scots in Scotland. I mean, they did like the old put a head in this port, put a foot in this port,
It was a warning.
Yeah, it was a warning, all right.
But England has had a very kind of odd history when it comes to witches. It was really the 16th century that was kind of the most prevalent, that if you think about the witch trials and witch hunting and Matthew Hopkins, which I'll get into in a little while. It was that era that really kind of cemented it, and that's where some of the most famous stories come from.
Yeah. Nothing like a good old fashioned show trial to spice up the
Exactly.
afternoon. Um, you know, or and what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of people that um uh I can't remember names, so forgive me, but there were some stories a few years back where the cancel culture decided to jump on, and it just made me laugh because they were so stupid.
Hmm.
Um, because what they didn't understand was they were going with the whole, well, everybody should be able to, pray how they pray, do how they do, and this was so wrong. And okay, but the examples you're using has been basically historically proven they were never witches or in Wicca at all.
Hmm.
They just had land that a baron wanted. So you're barking up the right tree, but on the wrong side, dum dum. You know, and a lot of people don't understand this because in modern day think we don't think this way, but in some parts, women couldn't hold land.
Hmm. Yep.
So what would happen is, she inherits something, and well, another person with more wealth wants it. Well,
Yep.
the easiest way to get it is you're a
To
witch.
to get rid of her.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, right. And they don't get that it's less about Wicca than it is about land grab.
Yep. It's all about, somebody is in your way, or it's a case of this, there's bad blood between families.
Yep,
What's the best way to get rid of a neighbor that you don't like? She's a witch.
yep,
And if she's a little bit strange, or if she lives alone, well, so much the better, because it's even more believable then.
yeah, yeah. And
Right.
I mean, you can't beat the trials. I mean, we're gonna tie
Mhm.
some rocks to you. We're gonna throw you in the lake, and if you float, you're a witch, and we'll burn you at the stake. And if you sink, then you're not, and you're absolved.
Yes. So
Um,
congratulations on being innocent, but you're still dead.
yeah. Either way, you're. But
Exactly.
uh, yeah, but yeah.
And Matthew
Um,
Hopkins was a bad one for that, because he would dress the accused in very, flowing gowns, so they would catch the air, so they wouldn't sink.
yep,
They would tie them in position so that there'd be an air pocket. He,
yep,
he knew exactly what he was doing,
yeah,
and for him, it wasn't even about hunting witches; it was all about how much money he could make.
exactly. Yeah, it was a lot about what it boils down to is it was a way for rich to get richer without having to go through the process of acquiring the land or well, I want to build a west wing on my castle, but your damn farm's in my way. Well, okay, if the person who's holding that just happens to be nailed for witchcraft or supporting witchcraft for us male
Hmm.
fellows, then all the better. We'll just get rid of you that way, and then your property becomes property of the state, and usually the person that is pushing this is the state, and you know, whoop,
Exactly. And it's not even just the victim, it's the family as well that then gets tarnished.
yeah,
So that goes down in the family history of how, your great great grandmother was a witch and she lost the land, and it's a stigma that stays with them.
yeah. It becomes more of a weapon, a
Hmm.
weaponized land seizure,
Yeah.
Yep.
um, than anything else, because it's in some people's mind it was, well, these people were practicing that they didn't need to be. They just had to be suspected of it.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. A lot of the cases are not people who were practicing witchcraft and then got punished for it. A lot, because a lot of the people who really did practice knew how to cover it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
This
the
wasn't
ones
something that you
who,
were
yeah,
advertised.
yeah, the ones that get caught are the ones that had no idea that they were doing witchcraft in the first fucking place. Right? They were just, carrying on their little lives, but hated people and didn't like being around people.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, the Inquisitor is at their door going, guess what, folks? Admit you're a witch? No. Okay, well, we're going to beat you for 4 hours, and then you're going to say you're a witch, and then we're going to burn you at the stake.
Yes, we're going to keep you awake for the next 73 hours until
Yeah. And please make this hurry. I've got to get home for dinner. That kind of thing. It was less about practicing witchcraft than, oh, damn, this person can now hold land. Oh, no, this doesn't work.
Yes, and in England, it was even, we had the Parliament passed the Witchcraft Act, which I think started in 1542, which made it punishable by death, as you correctly said. I think it was repealed about 5 years after, and then they restored it again in 1562.
Yeah, when the Pope got bored.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was the Catholic religion. Sorry, but it was. And by the way, if you're waiting for them to apologize, just remember to take a number and wait, because there's still, I think, in the 1600s was the last thing that one of the popes apologized for. So they're still in the 1600s. They'll get to you eventually.
Around. Yeah. Working on it.
They'll get there. Just wait. Yikes.
And
but
then the big thing from the 1562, I think, until about the 1600s, as you said, the Act transferred the trial of the witches from the church to courts, so they could not only be accused and put to death, but they could also be imprisoned as well.
Yeah, and not only that, but it could affect the entire family, like you said. It could come back where, say, your aunt got burned at the stake, and then you would hide that information or try to.
Yes.
Because down the road, your great niece could end up ruined because somebody notices that, oh, your aunt was burned at the stake for being a witch, and you keep to yourself. You must be following in her footsteps. Burn her. And then, it ends up
starts up
affecting
again.
Down the line. Yeah.
Do you think a lot? Did you say it was about a lot of acquisition of land? Do you think it was with normal people? Do you think it was a lot about petty grudges as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, if you think about it, even today, well, I mean, it's not punishable by burning you at the stake, but I mean, just sit in front of your front yard and listen to the gossip for 5 minutes.
Yes.
I mean, somebody will have somebody written off as a complete basket case, and that guy's a fucking idiot. It's we do it the same way. We just don't throw around witchcraft anymore because you'll get laughed at. We throw around, well, he's, my favorite, he's real special. My neighbor, he's a tad special, or he's a complete idiot. He hasn't cleaned his eave troughs in 4 years. That son of it backs up into my yard every year. That bastard, it's the same thing. It's just different terminology.
Yes, and I think a great example of that is look at the hysteria that we had over wearing masks.
Yeah.
If you didn't go into a grocery store, how quickly people would turn on you.
Yeah. My favorite was, I used to sit back and laugh because a couple of times over this, and I'm not going to mention who because they don't deserve the spotlight, but a few times online, I've been called a Republican. I live in Canada.
How does that work?
Interesting.
We don't have a Republican Party, you jerk. We have the Conservatives, but they're blue, you dum-dum. So calling me a red really doesn't help because now you're calling me a liberal, you dumbass. Learn bloody
the colors
politics.
used to be switched here, so
wake up and smell the roses, dum-dum. It's just funny to me because we do the same thing, but except instead of, well, you're a witch, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a blah, blah, fill in the blank. It's the same thing, just different terminology. And, we don't normally burn people for it. At least not on the 5
Normally.
o'clock news. So it's the same principle. It's just put in the 1600s.
Yeah,
And
it's the same hysteria that
Yeah.
a group of people can whip themselves up into, and the prime example with America obviously would have been the Salem witch trials.
yes.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, in hindsight, I mean, you can't ask for a better money grab than the Salem witch trials, because if they're still making money off that sumbitch to this day.
you know what? That I believe.
The only reason we know that there is a Salem in the United States. I mean, come on now. They ham that shit up. I've seen pictures and heard people talk and stuff like that, and they ham that stuff right up. They play right into it. It's a tourist direction now.
Yeah, tourist trap, exactly. Yeah.
John DeMarco makes a good point in chat. He says burning at the stake is now done on Twitter instead of the public square.
Yes. Although, I'm pretty sure it's a good thing it's done on Twitter, because half the idiots that try to do it on Twitter probably don't know how to start a fire with a lighter. But that might be a good idea.
But you see the same mob mentality play out, and Twitter is a great example of that. And we've talked about that cancel culture, but it's still the same kind of behavior that you see, whether it be in the 15th century or whether you see it today.
Yeah, and the other thing that a lot of people need to remember, and this kind of fits in because this is a history channel, and I stress all the time, when you're reading something or when you're looking into something historically, you have to take off your modern goggles and you have to go back in time. Because if you look at it through the modern goggles, you get stupid people that ask questions like, well, how in the world would somebody be able to do that? In that, because what you got to remember is, take your smallest town within your city limits, your little backwater town. That's roughly what they're talking about for the most part. There's a lot more land, but population-wise, it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody's business. And there's that 1 or 6 old biddies that are phoning. Did you hear what Clara did last week? Did you see that she wasn't with her husband at church? Did you?
Yes, out comes the gossip. Yeah.
Stuff. But we try to go, well, that would never happen in a city. No, it doesn't, because there's too many people and we just don't care. But it does happen. It just has less of an effect. In a small town, your entire life can be still ruined because 5 people decide to start on the phone line, start talking.
Yes. Yep.
Because in a small town, it's never what you know, it's who you know. So if you piss off the family that has had 7 generations in town, and you're just moved there, and you piss them off, you might want to move. It's just the way things are. It's the same principle. It's just different words being used. And luckily we don't burn people anymore. But I do want to throw a big welcome to Orville Nation, and a big get well to Orville Nation. Hopefully he's feeling better and back on the mend. Also,
he's improving.
That's good. Okay, so
he had a question for Purple.
Yes, that's what I was bringing up.
Are there still festivals in Britain on St. John's Day?
There are in some of these smaller villages. I believe it's not a widely celebrated holiday anymore. This is the Feast of St. John the Baptist, who established the Undivided Church in the UK, I believe. So I've never celebrated it, but I think it is still remembered in certain places.
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, that had a little something to do with King Henry VIII going to Rome, why that kind of went downhill. But yeah, so yeah, it depends on where in England. I would
It
assume.
depends on where. Yeah, like I say, it's not the most well known, but I'm sure there are places that still celebrate it. Absolutely.
Yeah, because certain monarch just kind of told Rome where to go and how to get there, and
Yeah, as
we
he
feel
did.
the effects of it today. Just look up Protestant and Catholic. I think the funniest
They don't
thing I've
have
ever
history.
seen was an Irish an Irish YouTuber reacting to somebody in the States going, "Since when do the Catholics and the Protestants hate each other?" And he couldn't stop
Oh,
laughing for about 15 minutes. Because his first comment was, "Oh, I don't know, just us for about the last 800 years. No big deal."
Only.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Orva says the reason I ask is because northern Spain, it's also considered the witches' night. I didn't know that. Over here, I don't believe it's known as that. It's just St. John's Day.
Yeah, it's well, the biggest one would be Halloween. More importantly, the night before Halloween.
Yes.
And that's the misconception that a lot of people don't understand. It's not Halloween day itself. It's the night before.
Yes, Devil's Night.
Yes.
Yes. And that's, I think, that obviously comes from Ireland. And although it's been kind of commercialized, it's
Yeah.
kind of strange the way that even though it kind of originated over in the British Isles, it's really more of a holiday with you guys. It's slowly kind of coming back. But when we were kids, very few people, celebrated Halloween. We didn't go trick-or-treating. It wasn't really a thing, even though we knew that Halloween, as a day. But it is interesting to see how it's kind of swung back around to being more of a celebration.
Hey, if a person can make a buck, they're going to make a buck, and that was
Yes.
making a lot of bucks. I'm sorry. The dentists love it because kids always got cavities afterwards, and and it's just funny to me because it's funny how you look at it, how Hollywood has shaped witchcraft, right? The pointy hat, the broom, if you ask 90% of people what's a witch look like, they're going to point to the pointy hat and the broom and the cloak, and no. 9 times out of 10, no.
No, and if you go back to, like, as you say, the people that were actually accused back in the day, it would have been, somebody very poor. It would have been, probably a little bit strange looking. Somebody lived out on their own, probably elderly. It would have been, the weakest member of the society that they could have actually picked on and gotten away with it. Because as you say, they couldn't have picked on a more powerful family.
No,
because the community wouldn't have believed them.
Well, not only that, but they would have been dead. The problem with what some of it was you would get a war going on, and the husband would go off to war and die, and now the wife has the land. Well, no, we want the land.
Yes.
And it's actually really interesting that sometimes what would happen is if it was a high noble family, they would send all the sons to war and make sure that mysteriously they were all on the front lines for some reason. And for some reason they all died, and the state graciously took in the land and gave the widow some money for it.
Yes. Looking
out
after
of the
them.
kindness
Yes.
of their hearts, they wanted that land, and those boys were in the way, so they needed to go. But they couldn't outright make a move against them.
Yes.
So they just found themselves on the wrong end of a cannonball.
And there were a few more kind of high ranking people, women that got accused. There were somebody like, I think it was Eleanor Cobham, which was, a much more powerful person in the society. I think she ended up being imprisoned, and one of them was actually executed not for witchcraft but for heresy. That's another thing they tied it in with. So if they couldn't get them for that, they tied it into something else.
Yeah, but and not only that, but the more powerful ones, it's definitely for land grab.
Yes.
You're getting too big for your britches. Time to cut you down. Because the person in power wants what? Oh yeah, power. And they don't like sharing. And if you're all of a sudden becoming more popular than they are with the people, well, something's got to be done about that.
Yes.
Can't have that.
Can't have somebody, upsetting the status quo.
That's right. Especially if it happens to be a male. Or sometimes it wasn't even the man, it was the wife.
Yeah.
How dare she do this to my husband? It's an insult. How do you let her get away with this? It happens in modern day.
Yes, defend my honor.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I can't, and they sit there, I can't approach her on this because then it's obvious. But if somebody else were to accuse and have evidence, then I would have to, for the right of in defense of the church, I would have to, So it's a nice way of getting rid of your competitors.
Yes, it's a nice way of, as you say, getting what you want and getting rid of somebody who's in your way to get what you want. Yes,
absolutely. And we do it today. We just don't do it to the extreme. We ruin people's lives all the time. It's just not, executed. But in some ways, you might as well. You look at, people's lives that have been destroyed because, well, this person back in 20 years ago said this, and their reputation is gone.
Yeah.
Right? They lose everything. Because
people hold a grudge. Yep.
Yeah, because somebody has spread gossip about that person.
Yep.
It happens today. It's just we don't kill them. Although sometimes I think we should, you might as well. You just fucking completely destroy the guy or woman or what have you. Their entire life is shot. You just screwed it up for them forever over something they may have said in youth for something stupid.
We all say stupid things in our youth.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Even sometimes in our adulthood. Oops, did I let that slip? But
never.
So but anyway, I've been kind of taking over your show, so I'll let you talk now.
No, not at all. This is your show. I'm just very honored to get to join you guys. But you're absolutely right. And Colin brings up another good point as well. One of the things that they had to do back in the day, obviously there weren't the hospitals that we had. So a lot of people would have known how to make their own cures, how to use herbs, how to use, whatever was found. And that, even though it isn't technically witchcraft, that is another thing that they were got on,
Yeah, well, that's where potions came from. The Hollywood adaptation is potions. Well, really what they were doing is herbs and stuff. And some of it was really beneficial and some of it was, that had nothing to do with it. But it was a nice thought, it had no real medical value, but placebos sometimes work just for the simple fact the person believes they work.
They do. And anybody that knew anything about, how to dress wounds and how to deliver babies would have been the huge one. If you've got a woman in the village who knows how to be a midwife, that is a huge advantage. If you can save the mother, if you can save the child.
Well, not only that, but if you didn't, could spell your end.
Exactly.
Or if the child is born with a defect, or if something like that could come back on you because you must have casted a spell and cursed my child.
Exactly. Yes, you left the demons in, or you swapped it with a changeling. You left the real baby with the fairies and brought back this deformed thing that couldn't possibly be our baby.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So just going to work could be an interesting long day, but we do it today. We sit there and we go, wow, that would never happen to bullshit. We just don't burn them at the stake. But you might as well half the time.
Mm-hmm.
We do it every day. We judge people every day.
Yes, and Colin brings up another good point. He says, not sure if it's mentioned earlier, but James I/6th, whichever way you want to look at it, was mortally afraid of witches and helped popularise witch hunts. He was, and that's why it was so violent in Scotland. It was bad in England, but they couldn't use torture. That's one of the things that they forbid from Parliament. Now, you could be sneaky and you could keep people awake for several days. You could walk them back and forth until they dropped from exhaustion, or you could starve them, but you couldn't use torture by device. But in Scotland, all bets were off. You could.
Yeah. And the other thing too is you look at it like, well, the tower, if it ever could talk, might say otherwise to that sentence. Yes, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Tower of London.
I always wondered how they got around that, and I think they said it. This is technically it's a separate institution, and it's again it falls down to you have to commit a crime against the crown to go to the Tower of London. That's how they kind of got through that loophole.
Yeah, it's they were in the tower for a couple hours. I don't know what happened, but they were in the tower.
It's the darndest thing. They suddenly confessed. Yeah,
they suddenly confessed. I don't know why. It might have been the rack. But it's we look at it from what always fascinates me is we look at it like Archer Collins says, witch hunt. We use that term these days very lightly and loosely, but we use that term for a reason, because a lot of times, even in the modern day, even though if you talk to most people, we don't do that stuff anymore. We're more civilized now. No, piss off. No, we're not. We're just as petty as we ever have been. We just, don't have governments that let us chop people's heads off. But we do it in other ways. We can completely destroy somebody, get them fired, make them lose their house, make them lose their wife, make them lose their family, all because they wronged us somehow.
Yes, there's a reason why cancel culture is so insidious and why it's on the rise again. It's exactly the same behavior that we've seen play out throughout the centuries.
Yeah, it's nothing has really changed, in our evolution. We're just as petty as we were back in the 1600s. We just play by different rules. The only reason they got away with the witchcraft, the witch hunts, was because it was allowed within the. If we could do it today, we would.
Yes, the only reason
on prime time television. They had pay-per-view, motherfucker. That stuff would be pay-per-view. But it's frowned upon, so they don't. But in some senses, we do worse.
Oh yeah, you see it play out all the time. I think Twitter was brought up as the example, and you see it constantly. You see it with celebrities. You see it with normal people. If somebody steps out of line, then people pile on them, and they're just as quick to turn on each other as they were to the person that they were accusing.
Oh, absolutely. Quicker than a dime. If it benefits them, damn straight they will. I mean, you look at anything in modern day, and it's crazy because people just go, we're so much more civil. No, we're not.
No, we've just got more sophisticated in how they do it.
Yeah, we've just got better at making it look nice. But in all reality, we're no we're not at the core, we're not any much different than we were back then. You still have, that group of people within your community that are always on the phone. Oh, did you see they didn't cut their lawn last week? Did you see she wasn't at church? Did you see? We do
That's exactly
it today.
what John DeMarco just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, we do it all the time. The difference is it's not punishable by death, but it is punishable by, you may not get that job because this guy heard you said something in 1996 that he doesn't agree with, and it doesn't align with his political views, so definitely can't hire you.
Yes.
We're going to ruin you.
Yeah. And then, as you say, either the state gets involved or more powerful things get involved. I mean, you can draw parallels with what's happening in Canada at the moment with the truckers, having their livelihood taken away because of
well, not only that, but I hate to say this, because I'm probably going to get yelled at in the comments, because I don't care. In some ways, you can look at there are some really nice organizations that can be used for evil. And you can look at it like the witch trials. You get certain individuals who reach a certain age, and then the state steps in. And they can't even buy a chocolate bar without asking permission. I'm not joking. It happens to this day. Oh, well, we've deemed you not sound of mind.
Yeah.
Right? Therefore, all your finances are now controlled by the province or by the federal government.
Yes.
And in some senses, this is a good thing when it's called for. There are some times that this is used negatively.
Yes, I was going to say, but don't worry, we've got your best interest at heart.
That's right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. And so in some senses, it still happens to this day. It's just done a little less messy.
Yes, and you brought up a really good point that there's always people that will use this to their advantage if they can make either money out of it or gain power from it. And obviously, we were talking, the best example, at least for the UK, was Matthew Hopkins. So he saw a opportunity to make a heck of a lot of money from this hysteria that James had whipped up. And as Colin said, he was terrified of witches. This was something that he believed completely and utterly in. And he actually released the book Demonology. And this is where Matthew Hopkins came in. And he was a self-appointed witch finder general. He managed to convince a hell of a lot of people up and down the country that he knew exactly what he was looking for when it came to witches. He's the one who came up with the idea of hunting for the witch's mark, which could have been literally any mark on somebody's body.
Yeah, so, not specific.
Yeah, if you've got a scar or you've got a mole, well, that just sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Hands up anybody who doesn't have some sort of mark on them.
Yeah. Or or your children needed you out of the way. Because they were tired of waiting.
Yep.
No, Dad got carted away as Mom got carted away as a witch. She wouldn't give me the property.
Yes.
Right?
It's all about greed. Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens to this day. Oh, well, I'm not in the will, so we'll make this real quick. Sorry, Dad isn't in sound mind. It now goes to the state. Right? They push. I really hate this, but my dad can't do this anymore, and he's too stubborn to realize this, and we really would appreciate it if you stepped in and da 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 da.
Yes, he promised us this years ago, but now he's not really of sound mind. He doesn't remember saying it. Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's the same principle. It's just legal. But then again, back then, so was this. So we look back at witchcraft, but we're not really looking at witchcraft, which I always find funny.
No. And as you say, you talk about the Hollywood idea of witchcraft, and I think because we've had it brought back into the public consciousness with Harry Potter, and people think witches, but really what witches were just victims. They were people that other people did not want in their lives anymore. They wanted them out of the way for whatever reason, or they held a grudge against them. And you see it time and time again play out with human nature.
Yeah. And to this day, we still hold some of the stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I always found hilarious was if you look back, and they go, well, we're talking about witchcraft. No, you're not.
Mm-mm.
None of this had anything to do with witchcraft. Not a single ounce of it. You'd get bits and pieces that are true, but more than not, you're not talking about witchcraft. You're talking about man's inability to seek vengeance on a neighbor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people romanticize the idea of Wicca, and they equate that with witchcraft, whereas Wicca is something that's a lot more recent. It was popularized by Aleister Crowley, at least over here, and then it moved over to the US as well, where it really flourished. But there isn't really any kind of history and connection with witchcraft, in quotations, and the religion that people follow as Wicca.
Well, and the funny part about it is if you go to the far back, a lot of times your witch practicing witchcraft was just somebody who still held on to the pagan beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? Like that was the extent of the witchcraft. They held on to the pagan beliefs, which is why heresy had to be tied to it.
Yes, that's what that was brought in, exactly. Yeah, you couldn't get them on like the moral point, but if you could bring in the heresy, then you've got the power of the church behind you. Yeah.
So a lot of it, witchcraft takes on many forms: Wiccan, paganism, anything else that was against the established religion at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Was just another way of, well, wrong think. You have wrong think. We're going to burn you at a stake. The punishment was a little bit more severe then, but we still do it to this day.
You got the job done, and as you say, once it starts, it's very hard to stop you. If you think of the witch trials in Europe, for example, they whipped themselves into absolute frenzy, and they had people seeing witches everywhere. You had families accusing each other, you had neighbors accusing each other, people that had never met before being accused, and people who had been taken in and tortured, and they were naming names just off the top of their heads, and then those people were brought in.
Will you spare me if I tell? Yeah, we'll spare you. Okay, well, this trucker and this bastard, because they pissed me off last week, so they can go to hell. And then they'd still end up burning them at the stake. But oh well,
it's like, I'm suffering, so I'm going to take somebody with me.
Yeah, exactly. This guy's sheep. He killed my sheep last summer. I'm going to make sure that he gets burned at the stake, or she gets burned at the stake, or what have you. She wouldn't go out with me, so she's got to go.
Yes.
And that's happened too. But it was a way of A, getting revenge, B, getting somebody out of the way was the main one. It was a way for a wealthy lord to get rid of somebody that was in their way or possibly challenging them for power. It was a way to get rid of them. We do this today. We just don't burn them at the stake.
Yes, it's more
physically. We do it other ways. But it's the same principle, just a different spin.
Yes. And do you think that this is just throughout the ages, it reflects human nature. We talked about this, like you say, you see patterns now that you see hundreds of years ago. Do you think this is just how people are?
Yeah, at the core. Yeah. At the core, you will always have the gossiper. You will always have the, person who holds that grudge, shall we say? And you try not to pull your hair out too much, my dear, at work. And hopefully your meeting is quick and doesn't make you want to go what the fuck too much. But have a good day, my dear.
Take care, Mrs. Canuck.
But it just becomes a mute point because you look at somebody said Trudeau is a witch. No, you have the wrong role there. Trudeau is the land baron trying to accuse other of this of said witchcraft because he doesn't want a challenge of power.
Yes, yeah, he doesn't want people getting in his way. Exactly. Yeah.
It's the same principle. It's just flipped on its head. If you think about it, if you've stood on the wrong side of a fence before, you get called every name under the sun. It's the same thing. Just back then, it came with a little bit of a stiffer penalty. But at the end of the day, it's the same principle. It's just different language.
Yes, yeah, it's still that insidious, and as you say, it's either it's because of greed, it's because somebody has wronged you, or it's because you just want what they have. One of the best examples of a trial that we had in the UK was called the Pendle Witches, and this is actually a family that was on trial. I think 12 people were accused. I think 11 went to trial, and they were found guilty through various means. But one of the people that actually turned on them was the granddaughter of the family. Now, I think she was about 7 years old, and she actually turned on her grandmother and her mother and said, "They're witches."
Yeah. And it boils down to it normally there was land at stake, reputation at stake, or a power grab.
With this one, it was two families warring. They'd been at loggerheads for probably a couple of generations, and this is how it came to head. One accused the other of being a family of witches, the other accused the other one's back, and before you know it, you've got 12 people all lined up, accused, and either they will go to prison or they will be executed.
Yeah. And then problem solved. They're out of your way.
Exactly.
And like I said, we do this. We do this today because a lot of what we, like I've said, what we consider witchcraft, and we look back and we'll look at the history of witchcraft. You're not looking at witchcraft. You're looking at humanity and how stupid it is, and how stupid it is to this day. We're a vengeful, spiteful group of people. And do as I say, not as I do, 9 times out of 10.
Yes.
If you're a parent, you know that all too well. When your kid goes, "Yeah, but you smoke," shut up. Just don't smoke, right? Do as I say, not as I do. We do that a lot as a people, right? And we like to, we used to be like that, but we have evolved much better now.
We like to think we're better than that.
We're nowhere near as barbaric as we were back then. No, we just use bigger weapons now. If you need proof of this, look in Europe at the moment. It's no, like at base, humanity hasn't really changed. We really haven't. I mean,
no.
We have fancier way of doing things now, and we hide behind law and and a civilized manner. Well, I got news for you folks. Back then this was law and this was civilized. Like at least it was, the other one I always get a kick out of is when they start comparing Vlad to a vampire.
Yes.
That always makes me laugh, just because the guy liked to stake people.
Yes, and even the way that he's looked at, he's considered a hero, obviously, to the Transylvanian people. But ask someone of Turkish descent, and they'll give you a very different answer.
A different idea. Yeah. He liked to turn people into kebabs. But there's that. But it was he was a small country. He needed to strike fear. What's a better way to strike fear than to put a whole bunch of people on wooden stakes and put them at your door?
Yes, make an example out of them. Yeah. And you talked about one of the things that was done here as well. You'd send a piece of the condemned to different corners of the kingdom as a warning.
Yeah, this is what happens if you step out of line. And in some ways, the witch trials were used in the same manner.
Yes.
You step out of line from the king or the ruling lord of the time, and all of a sudden your town gets randomly picked for the Inquisition.
Yes, funny how
Imagine
that happens.
How that happens.
Yeah. Of all the places, the Inquisitors suddenly turn up at your doorstep.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. What was that? You told the king he was nothing but a useless prick. Oh, and then you got investigated for witchcraft. I wonder how that happened. It's human nature. It
is, yeah, and we've kind of discussed. This is less about the actual witch themselves and much more about the society's role and the role that fear plays, and being labelled a witch back in the day and even now, is a terrible thing to have on you.
Although in modern day, it's gotten that cult following, so it's slowly being praised as another religion, even though what passes for Wicca these days has nothing to do with its roots.
Yes.
And no matter where you trace the roots, a lot of the roots for what's technically witchcraft is the pagan belief, the pagan way of doing things.
That goes back, obviously, as you say, people learning how to use herbs, how to use what was available to them, and worshipping the old gods as well.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it is easy way to put it, wrong think for the time.
Yes.
Right. So you could be condemned for believing the wrong way, which you do today. And I'm sorry to those people who believe that we have passed that barbaricism. We haven't. We just haven't.
Look over the past 4 years and tell me that we've passed that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at political organizations or political people running for parliament, and it comes out that they're not Christian. Watch how their popularity drops if they're in a highly religious area.
Yes.
Right? It's used as a weapon. It's the same thing as witchcraft back in the day. Well, he doesn't read his Bible. He never shows up to church. How can we vote for him?
Yes, he's not as pious as we are. Yes. He's clearly not one of us. Yeah. Exactly.
So it happens today. It's just usually it's just we use different language and we use different means. Instead of burning you at the stake, we just make it so that your life is a living hell.
Yeah, we'll just ruin you online and then make it so that you can't work. Your family's name gets discredited. People talk about you. Yeah.
Yes, it's the same thing. It's just different eras.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, like I said, when you talk about witchcraft, I usually just smile because it's like, you're not talking about the actual witchcraft though,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
You're talking about power grabs. You're talking about the suppression of women gaining power. Heaven forbid.
Yeah,
And
can't
that's
have that.
where some of the witchcraft theories come from is, oh my goodness, this woman has power and I don't like that. That's got to get fixed real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So it just becomes a simple fact of men, not men, I won't say that, but humans doing human things.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the core, we are the most despicable creatures on this planet. And thankfully, our animal brethren cannot talk to us, or they'd be like bee slapping us next week. um, like, really, you're the superior creatures on this planet? What the?
You guys got to the top, really?
Yeah, how the fuck did that happen? But, so it just becomes, it's more a case study of human nature than it
Mm-hmm.
is a case study of witchcraft.
Yes, and that's why I've always found it so fascinating. You know, we can talk about the stereotypical ideas of what a witch looked like then and now, and how she would have looked, powers that she supposedly had, and
Mm-hmm.
able to use the evil eye, and having a familiar like a cat or a toad, and all of these
Yeah.
things that modern ideas have kind of lumped together to make this kind of stereotype of a witch. But really, as you say, it's just about humans.
Yeah. Crazy cat lady meaning anything to anybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, she has 15 cats. Fucking something's wrong, right? She just likes cats. Go away, right? Like, get
Yes.
over yourself, you dum dum.
They're just cats. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right, folks. She doesn't have the skin of her enemies on the wall like you might. Depending on what era, you never know. It's just silly in some ways. It just proves, it's more a case study of humanity and how far we will go to prove
Mm-hmm.
we are right.
Yes, yeah. How many lines you will cross to get what you want.
Yeah.
How far you're willing to fall to take another person out of your path. And you can accuse people, you can talk behind their backs, you can say their family's never been any good, and then they get taken in, and that's when it snowballs. And unfortunately, a lot of people didn't think ahead and think, what, maybe I could end up being accused.
It happened a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you can acquire, or sorry, wrong word. You can put the same microscope of the witch trials on so many aspects, and we don't think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a lot of ways, the witch trials, as creepy as this is in some ways, have been romanticized.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that.
And
You
it's
think of
kind of disturbing if you
pop
think about it,
culture. Yeah.
that we've romanticized people suffering, um for and it's now become something of uh a celebratory, these people stood up for what no, they had no connection to the Wicca movement or anything like that. They were just in the wrong place, wrong time, and pissed off the wrong person.
Yes. Well, you brought up Salem, and I have never been to Salem. I'd like to. It's on my bucket list of places, but I would imagine it's a bit of a tourist trap with the Salem witch trials, especially around Halloween. I can imagine they really pull out all
Oh,
the
they
stops.
ham it up from what I hear,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
why not? Power
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah.
right? But it's been romanticized and it's been downplayed and
Mm-hmm.
it's been almost objectified. These people died standing up for what they believed in, and it's like, No, they got screwed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I get the picture you're painting is much nicer than the reality, but they just pissed off the wrong person
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, there is the flip side where it's just kind of swept under the rug and kind of forgotten about.
Yes.
We were talking about Scotland, and in Edinburgh Castle, the only thing that talks about it is this tiny little plaque that they've got up on the wall that mentions the witches. That's it in the entire city. And Edinburgh was one of the places that, were really persecuted people. People were put in barrels with nails driven into them and dropped down a hill.
Yeah, well, that's again a case study of human nature. If it is something you're embarrassed of or ashamed of or wouldn't play well in the modern day, that never happened. We never did that. That was other people.
Yeah,
that was
it's
other
a shame.
people.
It's a shame it happened, but we wouldn't do that now.
Yeah, we didn't do that. That was someone else. You look at Dublin. That wasn't us. And
that was Glasgow.
Yeah. Or that only happened in Wales. Stuff like that. Whatever. Whoever the kicking boy is that week. We tend to look back on our history with great revision. Especially, I mean, just look back at your own family. My favorite is you get that one family member, that one uncle, that when he was alive, everybody, what a jackass. Oh, I hate that prick. Right? Then he dies. And every one of those buggers will get up and say how they loved the man and how he was a great inspiration to him. And the only thing that's changed is he's dead now. Yes. That's the only difference. Right? It's funny to me in a way because you'll get that that one family member that everybody can't stand, and he can't stand them. But after he passes, he was a noble man. He was a great man. He was
the earth. Yeah.
And the only thing that changed from yesterday to today is he's dead. Right?
And
that's
what does he owe you exactly? What's in the will? Yeah.
And it just jockeying for position, or it's I don't want to be seen speaking ill of the dead.
Yes.
Right. Well, you spoke many ill of him while he was alive. To anybody that would listen.
Pretty sure he would have respected you if you'd stayed with that. Yeah.
Like it just always makes me smile. If I'm sitting at a funeral and I know that this person absolutely despised them and they get up and they start going off about how great they were and how many great memories they have. And it's like, I didn't know they piled shit that high.
Hypocrisy at its finest.
Yeah, it just always makes me laugh, and as a civilization, we do the same. We look back with rose-colored glasses, as it were.
Yes.
And if we can bury something under the rug, that may shine our country or a person that we liked or what have you in a worse light than what we'd like them to be, then it just accidentally gets forgotten and not written about.
Yeah,
we don't talk about that.
You've seen this as historians. You've seen history being revised and rewritten to make it more palatable.
Yeah, every day. Certain parts. I mean, we can go to World War II. There are certain parts of that war that really are told from one side. And if one country happened to do something, it was the most dreadful thing known to man. And if the Allies happened to do the same thing, it was for the greater good. It just depends on which side of the coin you're landing on.
Yep.
And it happens with everything. in everyday literature. I mean, if you're if you want to remain within the party, you're going to turn around and state that what Putin is doing is an awesome and great thing, and he is a noble man for doing so. And if you're on the other side of the coin, well, you have other opinions. So it just depends on, one, where you are on the side of the coin, and what your projected belief system is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as you say, yeah, a lot of it does come down to politics, and I think it always will do. And not just that, but again, it comes down to human nature. I don't think this is something that's ever not going to be a part of who we are. No matter how many times it happens, people don't seem to learn from it.
No. The only thing that we seem to be able to learn is, next time we got to figure a way to make that look better. Okay, yeah, I'd like to do that, but can we do it in a way that makes us look good? It just, we try to, in each incarnation of it, we try to make it look more justified.
Mm-hmm.
In each reincarnation of the witch trials, or I mean, if you really want to get technical, you could almost say that it was just revenge for the other 1,000 years. What's that? You're Christian? Oh, well, to the lions with you.
Yes.
Well, now the Christians are in control. Guess what they're doing? To the lions with you. It's it's just, which side of the coin are you on? Well, if the Christians are being sent to the lions and the gallows and being burned at the stake and other things, well, that was horrible and horrific. But if the Christian religion is doing it, well, then it must be for the glory and God's will.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
and that's what they used to say in the Inquisition. It doesn't matter what happens to the body; it's the soul we're trying to save.
Yeah. Which just makes you go, well, you got a funky way of doing it, my friend. How about a Bible study? Come on, let's just break for a Bible study here, and we'll be good to go. You don't need that lighter; put it away. Yikes. But it's human nature. At the boiling point, it's human nature, whether we like it or not. If you stopped and thought about it, you probably could sit there and go, ooh, I had my own little witch trial the other week when I went against Joe Blow, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. If you don't like somebody, or what have you, you will find things wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just human nature. And then you get people agree with you, and the more people agree with you, the more you're justified, and the more you feel justified, the further you will go. It's the same thing with the witch trials.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I've always found it so fascinating. Yes, you can, as you say, romanticize the idea of the witch, and this idea that there's this little old lady out in the middle of nowhere practicing magic, and she has a cat and she knows what to do with herbs and things. But as you say, what it really was is human nature, and to see this pattern repeat time and time again, this was just, at least for me, one of the most obvious examples of it. To see people so willing to turn against their neighbor.
Yeah, and it happens, like I said, in modern day. Just look at the last 2 years. Yikes. Whoops. It just never ceases to amaze me. So what I'm going to do is we've kept poor Purple for long enough. So what we'll do is we'll do a quick little final thoughts here, and then we'll wrap up and get out of here, folks. Jeff, you can start.
Well, thank you for coming on today, Purple. That was a fascinating discussion. You're a wonderful guest. We need to have you back. So thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. And Purple, final thoughts?
Guys, thank you so much for having me today. It was an absolute honor to get to talk with you, to get to kind of delve into a little bit of the history and why I find this subject so fascinating. So thank you. Seriously, thank you for having me.
Absolutely not a problem. Thank you to everybody who was here today. If you don't mind, give it a like, give it a share, get it out there, and we can expand this channel. And Midway is coming, I promise, at some point. But do be on
It'll
the
come.
lookout. This Friday there'll be a little bit of a radio edit for the roundtable. We're kind of taking that show into a new direction. You'll have to wait till Friday to find out why.
Nice.
But it's
Purple.
just, yeah.
Do you want to advertise your channel?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. Absolutely. But first, if you are not subscribed to History of R&R, what are you doing? Because these guys do amazing content. Absolutely love this channel. Always have done. So thank you, guys. If you would like to find more of me, you can find me on Rise and Shine with Purple Valkyrie. I've got a lot coming this week. Today just talked about Will Smith and that debacle, which was pretty funny. Injecting some life back into the Oscars.
You done effed up when wrestlers call you out. I'm just throwing that out there.
That was a heck of a thing. Yeah. Silly, but I'm happy it happened just for the memes. But as you say, when people are calling you out and saying that was a completely fake slap, then
although now what I need to happen next Oscars, I don't know what would have him there, but I need Chris Rock to insult Brock Lesnar, because that would be hilarious. Because if there's somebody that could get through Chris Rock's security, it's Brock Lesnar.
But I just want to say a huge thank you to you guys for having me, and a massive thank you to everyone who joined us in the chat. You guys are awesome as always. Thank you.
Thank you all, and as always, thank you, and good night.